I've been drinking, but I just want to say that, like, bitches is not fucking with a baby picture of me. You hoes be ugly, y'all skin be dirty, and y'all hair be nappy. How you can never. And by the way, like, a filter is never needed. It's just Instagram.
Some nights start out full of joy, full of laughter, full of love. And you never, not even for a second, think that before the night is over, everything will change forever. This is one of those nights. It was September 12th, 2024. A Thursday evening. In a quiet neighborhood in Northeast Houston, Texas, on a street called Loxley Road, the lights inside a townhome at number 8237 were glowing warm. Music was playing. Children were running around. There was cake. There were decorations. There was happiness in the air. Because it was a birthday party. A little girl was turning 6 years old. 6 years old. And her mama had done everything to make sure that night was special. That mama's name was Jalen Whitlock. Some people also knew her by the name Jalen Easterling. She was 25 years old. Young, full of life, and completely devoted to her two little girls, a 4-year-old and the birthday girl herself, her 6-year-old daughter. Jalen was the one who planned everything that night. She called the people. She set up the space. She made sure her babies would feel loved and celebrated. That's the kind of mother she was. The kind who showed up. The kind who made magic out of ordinary moments. The townhome sat in a neighborhood close to Tidwell Drive and Wayside Drive, a regular suburban area, the kind you'd drive through without thinking twice. Houses side by side. Families living their lives. Nothing unusual. Nothing alarming. Inside that townhome that night, there were family members. There were guests. There were two little children. And there was Jalen, moving through her own home, hosting, smiling, being a mother. Outside, the street was quiet. But not for long. You see, before that night ever arrived, there was already a storm brewing. A quiet, slow-building tension that had been simmering for months. Jalin shared 2 daughters with a 27-year-old man named Jalin Foreman. They had once been in a relationship together. That relationship had ended. But ending a relationship doesn't always mean the conflict ends with it, especially when children are involved. Police had already been called to that same address on Loxley Road multiple times before this night. There had been arguments, disputes about the children, disagreements about who had access, who had rights, who belonged where. The Houston Police Department knew the address. They knew the names. The tension between Jalin and Foreman was not a secret to anyone. But on this night, this birthday night, Jalin had made it clear. Foreman was not welcome. He was not invited. He was not supposed to be there. Her home. Her children's party. Her decision. And yet, just after 8:30 in the evening, headlights appeared in the driveway. A white Chevrolet Tahoe pulled up and stopped outside the front door. The storm had arrived. There is something deeply painful about a person who refuses to respect a boundary, who hears the word no and decides it doesn't apply to them, who shows up where they are not wanted and convinces themselves they have every right to be there. That is what happened on the night of September 12th. Jalin Foreman pulled up to 8237 Loxley Road in his white Chevrolet Tahoe. According to witnesses, he said he came to drop off birthday gifts for his daughter. And maybe that was partly true. But the way he came, the energy he brought, the words that followed, none of that looked like a father simply wanting to celebrate his child. Because Jalin had made it clear he was not allowed inside. Her boyfriend was there that night too, spending time with the family, being part of the celebration. And Foreman's presence was not something anyone had agreed to. Not Jalin. Not her boyfriend. Nobody. But Foreman got out of that Tahoe anyway. He walked up to the front door. And that's when the first confrontation began. Foreman and Jalen's boyfriend came face to face. Voices were raised. Words were exchanged. The kind of words that don't stay quiet, the kind that cut through music and laughter and make children go still. Witnesses inside the home heard everything. The joy of the evening began to crack. And then it got worse. Surveillance footage from a nearby property later showed something that no one at that birthday party should have ever had to witness. At least 5 gunshots were fired. 5. Toward that townhome. Toward a house full of people. A house with children inside. Foreman was heard shouting things like, "I know where you live." Think about that for a moment. A birthday party. A 6-year-old's birthday party. And a man standing outside in the dark, firing shots and screaming threats at the door. After shooting, Foreman drove away. For a brief moment, maybe people inside thought it was over. Maybe they held each other. Maybe the children were pulled close. Maybe someone was on the phone calling for help. But Foreman came back. He returned to that same house. Same street. Same driveway. And when he came back, the words he was shouting had changed. They had gotten darker. "We're going to end this now." Those words, that phrase, said outside a home where a mother was standing near her front door, where her children were just a few feet away, where family and friends had gathered to celebrate a little girl turning 6. "We're going to end this now." Inside the house, Jalen's boyfriend, scared that things were about to turn deadly, stepped outside. He had gone to get a firearm from within the home. He went out to confront Foreman. And then shots rang out again. And Jalen Whitlock fell. I want you to close your eyes for just a second. I want you to imagine being inside that house. You came to celebrate. You came to eat cake and sing happy birthday and watch a little girl smile as she blew out her candles. You came because someone you love invited you in. Because there was going to be music and laughter and joy. And then gunfire. And then silence. The kind of silence that follows something terrible. The kind that sits heavy in your chest and tells you that life has just changed in a way you cannot undo. Jalin Whitlock was near the front doorway of her home when the shots were fired. She was hit. Multiple times. And she went down right there. At the entrance of the house she had decorated for her daughter's birthday. The house that was supposed to be safe. The house that was supposed to hold nothing but good memories that night. Someone called 911. Houston Police Department officers came. Houston Fire Department paramedics came. They arrived with lights and sirens and urgency. They found Jalin unresponsive at the entrance to her home. They did what they could. But it was too late. Jalin Whitlock was pronounced dead at the scene. She was 25 years old. Her 2 daughters, her 4-year-old and her 6-year-old, the birthday girl, were inside that home. They were present. They heard what happened. They were alive, physically unharmed, but they had just witnessed something no child should ever have to witness. They had just lost their mother. Think about that 6-year-old. The birthday girl. The reason for the balloons. The reason for the cake. The reason Jalin had worked so hard to make that night beautiful. That little girl will carry September 12th with her for the rest of her life. Not as the night she turned 6, but as the night she lost her mama. Neighbors outside heard the shots ring out. Families on Loxley Road pulled their own children inside and locked their doors, waiting for police to arrive and confirm it was safe. One neighbor described hearing screams and rapid gunfire that sent the whole street into panic. This wasn't a movie. This wasn't something happening far away to strangers. This was a neighborhood. This was a street. This was a home where children lived and played. And in the middle of all of it, Jalen's body lay at her own front door. After the second round of shots, Foreman got back into his white Chevrolet Tahoe and left again. He drove away. Into the night. As if he could just leave behind what he had done. But you cannot drive away from something like that. It follows you. It follows everyone. The investigation had already begun. And the clock was ticking. After the shooting, Houston police moved fast. Homicide detectives secured the scene at 8237 Loxley Road. They documented everything: the shell casings on the ground, the bullet impacts on the home, the blood near the front door. They pulled surveillance footage from neighboring properties. They interviewed everyone who had been at that birthday party. They talked to neighbors who had heard the shots. They built a picture, piece by piece, of exactly what had happened that night. And the picture was clear. Witnesses described the white Chevrolet Tahoe. They described Foreman. They described the confrontation, the shouting, the shooting, and the flight from the scene. Police broadcast a description of the suspect and vehicle. The investigation moved with urgency because a 25-year-old mother was dead, her children were without her, and the man believed responsible was still out there. But not for long. 4 days after the shooting, on September 16, 2024, Jalin J. Foreman walked into police custody and turned himself in. He was taken without incident, questioned by homicide detectives, and then booked into the Harris County Jail. He was charged with murder in the 178th State District Court in Houston, Texas, for the death of Jalen Whitlock. Charged with murder. For showing up at a birthday party where he was not welcome. For firing shots at a home full of people. For coming back a second time with more rage and more bullets. For ending the life of a young mother at the door of her own home, in front of her children, on what was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of their young lives. The community felt the weight of this loss deeply. People who knew Jalin, and even many who didn't, were heartbroken. In the days that followed, family members and friends came together to organize support for her 2 little girls. Fundraisers were set up. Donations came in. People who had never met Jalin looked at those 2 children and felt something break inside them. Because those little girls didn't just lose their mother. They lost their sense of safety. They lost the woman who planned birthday parties and filled a home with music and love. They lost the person who was supposed to be there for every milestone. The school plays, the first heartbreaks, the graduations, the moments big and small that make up a life. None of that can be replaced. No fundraiser. No community support. No courtroom verdict. But what could be offered? Love, presence, care. People try to give. Meanwhile, the legal process began. Prosecutors prepared their case. Pre-trial proceedings started. The evidence collected by HVD, the witness statements, the ballistic findings, the surveillance footage, the documented history of prior disputes at that address. All of it became the foundation of a murder case that would now move through the courts. Justice, slow as it sometimes is, had been set in motion. I've told you the facts of what happened on September 12, 2024, on Loxley Road in Northeast Houston. I've told you about Jalin Whitlock, a 25-year-old mother who threw a birthday party for her 6-year-old daughter. I've told you about Jalin Foreman, the man who showed up uninvited, who fired shots at her home, who came back, who said, "We're going to end this now," and then did exactly that. But I want to talk about what this story really means. Because it's more than a crime report. It's more than a legal case moving through a courthouse. It is a story that is happening in different forms with different names in cities and neighborhoods all across this country. And we need to talk about it. Jalin and Foreman had a history. The police had been to that address before. Multiple times. The tension was documented. The red flags were visible. And yet, a young woman is dead. Domestic disputes that go unresolved don't just stay painful. They don't just stay loud and uncomfortable. Over time, when the anger grows and the control is unchallenged, they can become deadly. Especially when children are in the middle. Especially when one person refuses to accept that a relationship is over. Especially when access becomes a weapon. This is what happened to Jalin. She had moved on. She had her children. She had a boyfriend. She had a home. She was trying to build a life for herself and her daughters. She had drawn a line. You are not welcome here tonight. That was her right. And it cost her everything. There are people watching this right now who are in situations that feel familiar to this story. Maybe not this extreme. Maybe not yet. But familiar. A former partner who doesn't respect boundaries. Arguments that keep coming back. Visits that weren't invited. Tensions that law enforcement already knows about. If that is you, please hear this.
Take it seriously.
Every single time.
Don't minimize it.
Don't explain it away. Don't wait for things to calm down on their own.
Talk to someone.
Reach out to domestic violence resources. Tell the people around you what is happening.
Create a safety plan.
Because the warning signs in Jalin's story were there. And the outcome didn't have to be this. Jalin Whitlock deserved to see her daughter turn 7. And 8.
And 18.
She deserved to grow old watching those girls become women. She deserved to have her story continue. Her daughters deserved their mother. And so we remember her, not just as a victim in a news report, but as a real woman. A mother. A host. A woman who hung balloons and ordered cake and made a home feel like a celebration. Rest in peace, Jalin. And to her daughters, wherever they are tonight, you are so deeply, completely loved. Thanks for watching. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from.